I and a lot of other people make videos talking about which computers they use, but I think that there's a piece of tech that's almost always right next to it that oftentimes gets underlooked, and that is, of course, the mouse, or in some cases, trackpad. I mean, you can literally not use a computer without a mouse or trackpad, and I just think that generally your choice in these should be taken seriously.
I have 3 great options here, and I've used each quite a bit. I'll go over what they are, what it's like to use them, some of the pros and cons of each, and the prices of each. And then after all of that, if I had to only pick one to use, which one it would be.
So starting with the first one I bought, the Logitech MX Master 2S, which was a few years ago now, and I used it almost daily for my video editing client work. As you can tell, it's pretty beat up. Then I got the Logitech MX Vertical, which is definitely a little unconventional looking since it's a vertical mouse. And most recently, I got the Apple Magic Trackpad. So I used to hate trackpads. I did not want anything to do with them until I got a MacBook, which actually opened me up to, Apple ones are not that bad. Actually, they're good enough to the point where I bought a completely separate one. And I'm gonna go over all the prices of these towards the end of the video. And that's not just a, maximize the viewer retention, watch until the end. It's actually an important reason that is directly related to this video and a point that I wanna make. So first, I'll go into some of the pros and kind of just the general user experience with all the mice. First of all, the trackpad just built into any MacBook is just as good. It might actually be a little bit better. It just feels like a little bit smoother moving my fingers across it. Also on something like a 16-inch MacBook, the built-in trackpad is actually almost as big as the separate Magic Trackpad, which on its own has insane build quality. Like if this thing got ran over by a car, I would make sure the car is okay before I make sure this is okay. On the bottom, it has 4 nice little rubber pads just so when you're using it, it doesn't go anywhere. And since it's, a trackpad and tracks based on your finger movement and not where you're moving it like a mouse, it can obviously work on any surface, which is definitely a pro. And unlike the one built into the MacBook, this has a very slight angle, which in my opinion is more comfortable. And since it's flatter than either of these mice, it means it's actually more travel friendly, but I actually don't think I would ever bring it because of how good the one just built into the MacBook is. And not that the others were hard, but I think even a non-technically savvy grandmother can figure out how to pair an Apple Magic Trackpad to any Apple device. And one of my favorite things, maybe it's just because it's what my caveman brain finds fascinating, you can control what level of click you get. If I turn this off here and you try to click down, well, it doesn't actually click down because unlike a mouse, it's all just simulated through vibrations, I guess. You can choose between firm, medium, and light, which is my preferred choice. Like, I don't know what they do with it, but it feels real. And I've also turned on quiet click, which just makes the sound pretty much silent. But to me, the true magic of the Magic Trackpad is the Force Touch features, especially the 3-finger drag, which unfortunately I don't think is even an option on Windows. It pretty much allows for clicking and dragging, but instead you just tap down to 3 fingers and you can move it around, which makes it so much easier than having to do the click down with one hand and then drag it around with the other. I do not miss doing that. So for whatever reason, Apple made this almost like a secret setting, so I'm gonna show you how to find it, because you would think you just scroll down to trackpad and it would be right there. That makes sense, right? It does make sense, but that's not the case. You have to go to accessibility, you scroll down to pointer control, then you go to trackpad options, and dragging style, you select 3-finger drag. Now, the only caveat is gestures that used to be 3 fingers, like desktop switching, are now 4 fingers. But in editing softwares, it's so nice to not only be able to drag and drop with one hand, but without even clicking down, since you can just lightly tap 3 fingers on it. And you can briefly pick your hand up to continue the drag. Like if I was bringing this down, I'm quickly lifting and tapping again with 3 fingers. And then you find where you want it and then move your hand away. It does take a little bit of finesse, a little bit of getting used to, but at least for me, once I did, it was absolutely game changing. And just generally using a trackpad, you just can't move like this on a mouse, like horizontally, up and down, pinching in and out. It just feels so natural on a trackpad. But I mean, like, what's even the point of talking about an Apple trackpad if you don't mention the gestures? macOS gestures and Apple trackpads are like peanut butter and jelly, Batman and Robin, pineapple on pizza. I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm I don't even think it's that bad. But yeah, something like the desktop switching I am using all the time. Now I used to just associate using a trackpad with wrist pain, but with something like force touch, when you don't actually have to click down, I'm literally just super lightly tapping on it. And combining that with really being able to position your hands however you want and using whatever finger you want on the trackpad, I actually find it to be pretty comfortable. And without even getting into these two yet, you can see that these are three very different choices, but you know what you don't see? Wires, because all three of these are wireless, which also means that they need to be charged. But battery life for all three of these are very good. They're, I would even say, great. Dare I say grand. Like, I think I bought this trackpad in January, so about 7 months ago. I charged it this morning for the 5th time ever. And as far as ports, this is the newest trackpad, so it's rocking USB-C instead of Lightning, which is preferred. The vertical mouse is also rocking USB-C, and the MX Master 2S, unfortunately, I think might be the only device I still have that requires micro USB. But to be fair, this is the 2S. The newer 3S does have USB-C. At least it did come with a very nice cable, and then I got the same nice cable, just in USB-C for the vertical mouse. And the Magic Trackpad came with what I think is the highest quality USB-C cable I've ever owned. It's braided, it's color matched, and it's just a cable. So, you know, I guess it doesn't matter that much. But, you know, despite the micro USB port on the MX Master, I gotta say it is like the perfect fit for my hand. Just like the shape of it is just, it forms right to it. It feels so good. I would say it's almost perfect. There's one little thing that I'll mention later. Now, mine is kind of broken, but there is a button on the thumb pad. Oh, wait, it does work. Huh, the more you know. But by default, when you press this, it brings up the same Alt-Tab menu for Windows, and on Mac, it brings up the mission control. And the MX Master feels super solid. I would say it's not as strong as the trackpad, but it's also much lighter, which is preferred because, again, the trackpad is staying still, the mouse you're moving around. And there's some pads on the bottom that make it pretty nice to use on any surface. I've used it on, of course, a mouse pad, a wood table like this one, or even a glass table. It works perfectly fine. Now, one of my favorite things about this is the horizontal scroll. Again, especially for something like a video editing software where you're moving horizontal quite a bit, it is super nice to have that feature right on your thumb. And even though it's a little weird looking, the vertical mouse is actually the most natural angle out of any of these. Like, the best way to describe it is it kind of just feels like you're going in for a handshake when you grab it. And like I did at one point, if you ever had bad wrist pain, keeping your arms aligned in this position is good for that. And a big pro of the MX Master over the vertical mouse is the scroll wheel. The vertical one has a very standard scroll wheel. You know, nothing to complain about, but the MX Master has a more clicky, I guess, tactile scroll, or you can press this button and it feels like it almost unlocks it, and it's like a full free glide. You can push it and it just keeps spinning. I don't really know when that's useful though. Now, both the vertical and the MX Master have forward and back buttons on the side, but you can also do that on a trackpad by pushing 2 fingers to the left or 2 fingers to the right. Of course, having the actual physical buttons on the mice are better. And the vertical mouse has a programmable button on the top, which I just have set to mission control, which does the same thing as the thumb pad on this mouse. And as far as buttons on the trackpad, you have a grand total of 1, and it is the on and off switch. It is satisfying, at least. Before I talk about the literal cost, what's the metaphorical cost of using each of these? Because that's probably more what's gonna make it a deciding factor or not. And the first main con here is for the trackpad. It's really only for Mac. There's no good Windows alternative. I think this actually can work on Windows, but it loses a lot of the functionality of what actually makes it good. And something else you might have been able to pick up on if it gets in the right light, it can smudge pretty easily, especially the black one. And you might not be able to pick up on this, but my hands are pretty clammy right now, and it isn't always the smoothest thing. Now, I'm sure this next one will not apply to anyone watching this because I have like an under 6% female viewer base. But if you have longer nails, it could be more awkward to get the right angle on it. And kind of on a similar topic to that, these mice are only for right-handed people. The left-hand discrimination is crazy, but a trackpad is very ambidextrous. Personally, I'm right-handed, so that doesn't actually make a difference for me. So mice like the MX Master fits my hand perfectly. Like I said, other than the one thing of there's no real spot for my pinky. Like this whole part here used to hurt so bad after the long days of editing. Like there's just no place for it to go. It's kind of just awkwardly hanging there. And after a longer day of using the trackpad, I still feel a little bit of soreness in my wrist. Nothing beats the MX Vertical when it comes to support of your hand. But to be fair, this could be a little more awkward to get used to and feel like you have a little less control since you're moving it with the side of your hand instead of like on the MX Master when you're kind of over the top of it. But out of all three of these, the Vertical is definitely the lightest, which also means it feels the cheapest, or I guess just less premium. But you know, to be clear, that does not mean that it feels bad. And I've been using the MX Master the longest, which means I have found some quirks about it. One is this can only connect wirelessly. When you plug in a cable, all it does is charge it. But I mean, you can use it while it's charging. It's just gonna be connected wirelessly. I just feel like that's a little weird. And also for the MX Master, I don't know if I just have oily fingers or something and I don't wash them, scrub them hard enough, but it doesn't just get smudgy, it gets like oily and you can like scratch it off and it's all disgusting, it like flakes off of it. It is gross. And another thing that might be a me problem with the vertical mouse is when I'm going from keyboard typing on it with both hands to trying to find this and grab it, I tend to knock it over a lot. I think it just sticks up higher than I anticipate. So when I'm reaching over to grab it, I end up just knocking it down. Like that's probably just a skill issue on my part, but I just find it easier to get resituated with a trackpad or the MX Master. Now, like I said, I save the prices for the end for a specific reason. Price should not be the determining factor of which mouse you use. I think your comfort is far more important, especially if you're using the mouse on a computer you're using to work and make money with. I mean, take it from me, I used to have really bad kind of carpal tunnel-y wrist pain, but once I actually started taking my choice of mouse more seriously, it pretty much went away completely. But with that being said, these are a little bit pricey. So some Logitech mice like this MX Master 2S can be bought on sale for around 60 bucks. With, it looks like some of their newest versions being around $130. And the MX Vertical can be bought for around the $100 mark. And it looks like they have a cheaper option called the Lift, which is around $80. And for the trackpad, like I said, there's some Apple tax. It is $150. I mean, you can literally not use a computer without a mouse or trackpad, so it should definitely be something that you consider and prioritize, in my opinion. Like this whole video, it's all just based on preference and what's comfortable for you. And it is a tough choice, but if I had to pick one of these, it would be the trackpad, which 5 years ago, that would sound insane to me. And even today, I think that might get some raised eyebrows and people questioning my sanity, but I promise I'm okay. Now, I think the biggest thing missing from my list is the Apple Magic Mouse, which I've never used, and it looks like I would hate it, but you know, then again, I used to hate trackpads and now it's my preference, so maybe it is worth a try. But thank you for watching and feel free to subscribe for more.